She became the millionaire's secretary, but her very first decision made his empire tremble. She became the millionaire's secretary, and her first decision exposed the fear behind his power. Welcome to Billionaire Stories Real. If you enjoy deeply emotional stories of redemption and true love, please subscribe and hit the bell. Now, let's dive into the untold story that changed everything. Manhattan shimmered beneath the late evening rain. Inside the glass tower of Cross Enterprises, silence ruled like a religion. Every employee moved in quiet synchronization, afraid of one man, Ethan Cross, the youngest self-made millionaire in New York. His name alone carried both respect and fear. That evening, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Anna Reed stepped in for her first day. A folder clutched in her trembling hands carried the signature of the board itself, the same board that had begged someone, anyone, to take the position everyone else had refused. When she walked into the boardroom, 12 executives sat frozen. Ethan was at the head of the table, back straight, expression unreadable. His reputation was carved from precision and control. No one ever interrupted him, until Anna did. "Mr. Cross," she said calmly, voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "I reviewed the internal memo regarding the silence protocol. I am officially canceling it." The entire room turned to stone. The silence protocol was the unspoken rule forbidding anyone to mention Ethan's family, his past, or the scandal that had almost destroyed the company. No one had dared to question it for 5 years. Ethan's eyes finally lifted, steel gray under the cold light. "You are canceling it?" His tone was quiet, measured, terrifying. "Yes," she answered. "Fear is not a management strategy, Mr. Cross. It is a cage." A long pause swallowed the room. Then he stood, walked past her without a single word, and left the meeting. For a full minute, no one moved. The rain hit harder against the glass, like the city itself. Exhaled. By midnight, rumors spread across the 40 floors about the new secretary who dared to do what no one else had ever done. Some called her brave, others called her reckless, but Ethan Cross did not fire her. He simply summoned her to the top floor the next morning. When Anna arrived, he was already there, staring at the skyline. He did not turn around. "You burned the first rule of this building," he said. She took a breath. Maybe it needed to burn. The silence that followed was not cold anymore. It was heavy, alive, shifting. For the first time, the man who built an empire on fear looked uncertain. And that was the beginning of everything that would break him and save him. Let us return to our main character. Morning light spilled across Manhattan like gold dust. The next day began with a tension that felt almost alive inside Cross Enterprises. Every step Anna took toward the top floor echoed louder than the elevator chime. Her badge trembled slightly in her hand, but her resolve did not. When she entered Ethan Cross's office, the room was silent except for the rhythmic hum of the city below. The view stretched endlessly through floor-to-ceiling glass, but his presence somehow felt larger than the skyline. He stood with his back turned, hands resting on the edge of his desk. "Close the door," he said. His tone was calm, yet his voice carried a quiet weight that made the glass walls feel thicker. Anna obeyed. Ethan turned around. The distance between them was only a few feet, but it felt like two worlds colliding. "You canceled the silence protocol," he said slowly. "Do you understand what that means for this company?" She held his gaze. "It means people might finally breathe again." He studied her face, perhaps expecting fear or apology. Instead, he found a steadiness that mirrored his own ambition, except hers burned for something entirely different. "Sit," he said. She did. He walked around the desk, every step measured. "You think fear built this empire, Miss Reed?" "No," she replied. "Fear built the cage that keeps it from growing." A faint smirk ghosted across his lips, though it never reached his eyes. "You talk like someone who has never lost everything." Anna hesitated, then said softly, "Maybe. Or maybe I have lost enough to recognize someone who hides behind control." For the first time, Ethan did not answer. He turned back to the window, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. The silence stretched until Anna stood up, setting the folder gently on his desk. You hired me to help rebuild your image. That starts with truth, not silence. If you want results, you have to face what everyone is afraid to say. Her voice did not waver. Including yourself. When she left the office, Ethan remained still, eyes fixed on the reflection of the city he commanded but never trusted. Behind the glass, his own reflection looked like a stranger. By noon, the company buzzed with whispers. A handful of department heads began reopening internal discussions long buried by fear. Anna's decision had created ripples she could not yet measure. That evening, as she reviewed reports in the quiet break room, a shadow appeared at the doorway. Ethan. No suit jacket this time, just a white shirt rolled at the sleeves. Miss Reed, he said, voice softer. Walk with me. They crossed the lobby in silence, then stepped outside into the chill of early spring. The city roared around them, yet somehow it felt private. He finally spoke. You changed something today. The board is furious. I know, but you also did what I never could. She looked at him. Confused, he exhaled. You reminded them I am still human. Anna searched his face, but his expression gave nothing away. Still, there was something in his eyes, a flicker of exhaustion, maybe regret. Why did you build this wall of fear, Mr. Cross? His answer came quietly. Because the last time I trusted someone, I lost everything. They stood at the edge of the street, watching the lights reflect off puddles on the asphalt. The traffic signal turned from red to green, painting his face in shifting color. Then maybe it is time to stop living behind glass, Anna said. For a moment, he looked like he might reply, but instead, he nodded once and walked away, leaving her in the city's pulse. She did not know it yet, but this fragile exchange had cracked the first layer of his armor. The empire built on fear had begun to change, not with power, but with one woman's quiet defiance. Let us return to our main character. The morning after their silent walk through the city, the world inside Cross Enterprises felt different. It was subtle, almost invisible, like a breath held too long, finally released. Employees no longer avoided eye contact in the elevators. Conversations that once died in whispers began to return in cautious tones. Yet, in Ethan Cross's office, the air remained heavy, charged with something unspoken. Anna sat across from him, reviewing schedules and investor briefs. He was quieter than usual, eyes drifting toward her more often than toward the spreadsheets. For the first time, she noticed how exhaustion softened the edges of his confidence. He looked like a man who had built too many walls and was beginning to forget why. Mr. Cross, she said, not looking up from her notes. The board meeting is set for Friday. They want to discuss the protocol change. He nodded slowly. They think I have lost control. Maybe you have, she replied, voice calm but deliberate. And maybe that is not such a bad thing. He studied her. You have a strange definition of success, Miss Reed. She smiled faintly. I have a different definition of fear. For a moment, the tension between them shifted, less battle, more recognition. Then he returned to his files, the silence, folding around them again. That evening, as the city lights flickered on, Anna stayed late to finish her reports. The office floor was nearly empty, except for the low hum of computers and the steady rain tapping against the glass. When she walked past Ethan's office, she saw him still there, tie loosened, jacket off, staring at a photograph on his desk. Without thinking, she knocked lightly on the open door. He looked up, surprised. You are still here. So are you, she said, stepping closer. Long day? He let out a quiet laugh. Long life. Anna noticed the photo on his desk, an older man with kind eyes and the same sharp jawline. Your father? Ethan's voice lowered. Yes, he founded this company. He believed strength meant silence. After he died, I made it louder. By making everyone afraid? He looked at her, not angry, just tired. By making sure no one could ever betray me again. Her heart tightened. And did it work? He hesitated. Until yesterday. Neither spoke for several seconds. The only sound was the storm outside, matching the rhythm of something unspoken between them. Mr. Cross, Anna said quietly, you do not have to carry all of it alone. He turned back toward the window. I have spent years building walls. You show up and try to convince me that they were cages. Why? She met his eyes. Because I know what cages feel like. Ethan's gaze softened, curiosity flickering beneath his control. But before he could ask, her phone buzzed with an alert from the internal system. She glanced down, and her stomach sank. The message came from a private board channel she was never meant to access. If Reed cannot destabilize him by quarter end, we will proceed with termination, collect everything she finds. Her pulse froze. It was not just a job offer, it was an assignment. She had been planted here. Ethan noticed her expression change. Is something wrong? She forced a small smile, tucking her phone away. Nothing important. But as she left his office, the weight of guilt pressed on every step. The truth she carried could destroy him, or destroy her, if revealed too soon. That night, in her small apartment overlooking the river, Anna stared at the skyline, glowing through the mist. She remembered his voice, his exhaustion, the flicker of trust beginning to grow. She had come to expose him. But now, she was beginning to see the man behind the power, the one broken by fear, not defined by it. For the first time since taking the job, she felt afraid not of him, but of what would happen when the truth finally surfaced. Let us return to our main character. The days that followed moved with a deceptive calm. On the surface, Cross Enterprises appeared steady again, its glass walls reflecting the same rhythm of success and power. Yet beneath that reflection, the ground was shifting. Anna arrived early every morning, pretending nothing had changed. She avoided the private channel that now haunted her thoughts. Every time she looked at Ethan, she felt the weight of the secret pressing harder against her chest. He trusted her now at least as much as a man like him could trust anyone. And that made the truth unbearable. That Thursday morning, Ethan called her into his office. His voice was softer than usual, almost uncertain. Miss Reed, cancel my afternoon meetings. There is somewhere I need to go. Should I prepare the car? She asked. No, he said. You are coming with me. The tone left no room for argument. Within the hour, they were driving north, out of Manhattan, away from the skyline that had defined both of their lives. The city faded into open highway, the silence between them broken only by the sound of rain brushing against the windshield. After almost 2 hours, the car turned down a narrow road, lined with trees that had just begun to turn green again. At the end of the lane stood an old stone house overlooking a quiet lake. Ethan parked and stepped out without a word. When Anna followed, the cold air wrapped around her, carrying the scent of water and pine. This was my father's retreat, Ethan said finally. He built it before the company existed. I used to come here as a boy. It is the only place that ever felt honest. Anna listened quietly. He wanted me to lead with compassion, Ethan continued. But when he died, all I could think about was control, power, never being weak again. He looked at her then, the rain softening his expression. You reminded me that control is not the same as strength. Her heart caught in her throat. Ethan! He stopped her gently. You do not have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that the decision you made, the one everyone feared, it forced me to see what I had become. She wanted to tell him everything in that moment. About the board, about the assignment, about how her loyalty had begun as a transaction and turned into something else entirely. But the words would not come. Instead, she said, people are afraid of you because you never let them see the man behind the title, but I have seen him, and he is worth saving. For the first time, Ethan smiled a real, quiet smile that carried both pain and peace. They stayed by the lake until the sky turned pale gray. When they returned to the city, something between them had changed. The distance that once felt deliberate now felt fragile, charged with emotion neither dared to name. That night, Anna found another message waiting in her secure inbox. Deadline approaching. Deliver the final report by Friday, or lose everything. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She could end this, submit the file, protect her future, and watch Ethan fall. Or she could risk everything to protect him. When she finally turned off her phone, her hands were shaking. She knew the choice she had to make. The next morning, as Ethan prepared for the board meeting, Anna entered his office with the same folder she had carried on her first day. He looked up from his notes, curious. "What is this?" he asked. "My resignation," she said softly. "And something you need to read before the meeting." He frowned, opening the folder slowly. Inside was a printed copy of every message from the board, the proof that they had used her to manipulate him. Ethan's eyes darkened as he read. "They sent you?" "Yes," she whispered. "But I never sent them what they wanted." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan closed the folder and met her gaze. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve the truth," she said, her voice trembling. "And because I could not betray the man you have become." The clock on the wall ticked toward the hour of the board meeting. Outside, the city roared as if unaware that two lives inside the tower were about to change forever. Let us return to our main character. The boardroom was colder than usual that morning. The walls of glass reflected the gray skyline, and the air hummed with tension that no one dared to break. 12 executives sat in silence as Ethan Cross entered the room, the folder Anna had given him clutched in his hand. His expression was unreadable, controlled, but charged. Anna stood near the door, her badge clipped to her blazer for what she knew would be the last time. Every sound felt amplified: the rustle of papers, the click of pens, the low murmur of men who had built their power on secrets. "Mr. Cross," the chairman began, "we are here to address your recent behavior and the instability your secretary's actions have caused." Ethan did not sit. Instead, he placed the folder on the table and opened it carefully. "Before we begin, I want you all to see this," he said. His tone was even, but the calm only made the words sharper. He spread the printed messages across the table. "These are copies of your communications with Miss Reed. Messages that prove this board used her as a tool to manipulate my position." The room froze. One executive cleared his throat nervously. "You cannot prove these are real." Ethan's gaze was like steel. "I can, and I will. The digital signatures are intact. You conspired to undermine your own company, the same company my father built." He turned toward Anna then, his voice softening. "And you." She looked up, uncertain. "You chose to tell the truth when you had every reason not to. For that I owe you more than this room ever could." The chairman slammed his pen down. "You are jeopardizing everything, Ethan. You think one act of defiance will change how this company runs?" Ethan stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "No, but it will change how I lead it." He reached for the intercom button on the table. "Security, please escort the members of the board from the premises. Effective immediately, their access is revoked." Gasps filled the room. 2 security officers entered quietly, professional and firm. One by one, the executives stood, some protesting, others stunned into silence. When the door finally closed behind them, the only sound left was the city's distant hum. Ethan turned toward Anna again. "You knew they would destroy you if you came forward," he said. She nodded. "I knew, but I could not let them destroy you." For a long moment, neither spoke. The tension that once separated them now felt like the fragile thread that connected them. He took a breath. "You resigned this morning." "Yes," she said softly. "Because I thought you would never forgive me." Ethan walked to the window, looking out at the skyline he had spent years conquering. "Forgiveness is not the problem," he said. "Letting go of control is." He turned back to her. "Do you plan to disappear now?" "I plan to," she admitted. "But I think I have unfinished work." He gave a quiet smile, the kind that hinted at both relief and disbelief. "You really are fearless, Miss Reed." "I am learning from you, Mr. Cross," she said. Later that day, headlines began to ripple through the financial world. Cross Enterprises restructures, leadership after internal scandal. The company that had once thrived on intimidation now faced its reckoning. But inside the tower, something new was beginning, something that felt like truth. That evening, As the city lights glimmered beyond the rain-soaked glass, Ethan found Anna in the lobby. She was holding a single envelope, her final clearance papers. He stopped in front of her. "What will you do now?" "I do not know," she said. "Maybe I will finally stop running." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and handed her a small silver key. "This belongs to the lake house. If you ever need silence, not the kind that hides things, but the kind that heals, go there." Anna took it carefully, understanding what it meant. "Goodbye, Ethan," she said. "Goodbye, Anna," he replied. As she walked out into the night, the rain had stopped. The reflection of the tower shimmered on the wet pavement, no longer cold or distant. Inside, Ethan turned back toward his office, the weight of his father's legacy finally lifting. Let us return to our main character. 3 months passed since the storm that nearly tore Cross Enterprises apart. The scandal had faded from headlines, replaced by the quiet rebirth of a company learning to breathe again. The board had been restructured, new partnerships were forming, and Ethan Cross had begun to lead differently, calmer, clearer, with less armor between him and the people who worked beside him. But there was one presence missing from his office, one that the silence could never replace. Anna Reed had disappeared from the city after their last meeting. She had not taken the key to the lake house, though Ethan still kept it in his desk drawer, polished and untouched. Every morning, he would glance at the empty chair across from his desk, where she used to sit, head slightly tilted, eyes sharp with quiet conviction. The woman who had dared to defy him had also saved him, and then vanished without a trace. One late afternoon, as sunlight poured through the windows, a knock broke the silence. Ethan looked up. His assistant stood in the doorway holding a letter. "It was forwarded from an old P.O. box," she said. "No return address." Ethan opened it carefully. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Ethan, you once told me that control was the only way to survive. I hope you have learned now that letting go is how we truly live. I found a small community near the lake house, helping rebuild a shelter for women who want to start over. Maybe I needed to start over too. The world is quieter here, but it feels alive again. Anna." He read the letter twice, before folding it neatly. The H that had settled in his chest over the past months felt different now, less like loss, more like longing mixed with gratitude. That weekend, he drove north. The same winding road led him back to the place his father had built. The house stood quiet against the lake, surrounded by tall grass and the smell of pine. As he approached, he saw movement near the dock, someone arranging supplies into neat stacks. Anna turned when she heard his footsteps. For a moment, neither spoke. Time seemed to collapse between them. "You did not use the key," he said softly. "I wanted to earn being here," she replied. He smiled faintly. "You always did everything the hard way." She laughed quietly. "And you always preferred control." The silence that followed was not awkward this time. It was gentle, full of things both of them understood without saying. Ethan took a step closer. "The company is stable now. People are starting to believe. Again." "I knew they would," she said. "They just needed to see the real leader behind the title." He looked at her for a long moment. "You changed everything, Anna." She shook her head. "You did that yourself. I only reminded you who you were before the fear." The sound of wind rippled across the water. Ethan reached into his pocket and held out the small silver key. "It belongs to you now. For all the walls you helped me tear down." Anna took it slowly, her fingers brushing against his. The contact lingered unspoken, fragile, real. As the sun dipped lower, they stood together at the edge of the dock, watching the reflection of light shimmer across the lake. No grand declarations, no dramatic promises, just two people who had found truth in each other after losing everything else. For the first time, Ethan did not think about the company, or the empire, or the legacy he had been trying to protect. He only thought about this moment, simple, quiet, and painfully human. And for the first time in years, he smiled not because he had won, but because he finally felt free. The deepest secrets are about to change everything. Subscribe now to catch the dramatic twist that is coming in the next chapter. Autumn came quietly to the lake. The trees that once shimmered green now blazed with amber and gold, their reflections rippling across the still water. Ethan Cross had spent most of the summer helping rebuild the shelter Anna had started. It was no longer just her project, it had become theirs. Each morning, he traded boardrooms for blueprints, suits for rolled-up sleeves. The townspeople had grown used to seeing the once feared millionaire hauling lumber, repairing roofs, and listening more than he spoke. For the first time, his silence meant peace, not power. Anna often caught him lost in thought at the edge of the dock, where the world seemed far away. One evening, she approached quietly, a cup of coffee in her hands. "You are getting good at this," she said with a smile. "Almost like you belong here." He accepted the cup, nodding. "Maybe I finally do." She looked at him, her expression soft. "Do you ever miss it? The company, the city, the noise?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Sometimes, but not the fear that came with it. I spent years chasing control. Now I am learning what freedom feels like." Anna smiled. "Freedom is expensive. It costs everything we thought mattered." He turned toward her. "And yet somehow it gives back everything we actually need." Their conversation faded into quiet laughter as the sun sank below the horizon. But later that night, as Anna reviewed the final permits for the shelter, she noticed an email from an old investor and offer to return to Cross Enterprises as an advisor. When she mentioned it to Ethan the next morning, he smiled, though his eyes revealed something deeper. "You should take it," he said. "They need someone like you." "And what about you?" she asked. "I have already found what I need," he replied. That afternoon, as she walked through the construction site, she realized the truth in his words. He was no longer the man who ruled from behind glass towers. He was the man who had learned to rebuild brick by brick from the ground up. And yet, even as the seasons changed, she knew their story was not over. There were still truths waiting to surface, and hearts learning how to heal in the open. The calm before the next storm had begun. Let us return to our main character. Winter arrived early that year. The lake froze around the edges, and the shelter Anna and Ethan had built together was finally finished. It stood quietly against the snow, a warm refuge glowing with light each evening. For the women who arrived there with nothing but broken hope, it was more than a building, it was a new beginning. Ethan spent most mornings splitting firewood or fixing small repairs, while Anna managed the shelter's growing network of donors and volunteers. Life had become simple, almost peaceful. Yet both of them knew peace had a price. The past was never truly silent. It only waited for the right moment to return. One afternoon, a familiar black car arrived at the property. Ethan recognized the license plate before it even stopped. It belonged to the law firm that had once represented the Cross Enterprises board. He walked outside as the driver opened the back door, revealing a woman in a dark coat holding a briefcase. "Mr. Cross," she said, offering her hand. "I am here on behalf of the company. The federal investigation into the board's misconduct is complete. They have cleared your name entirely, and the shareholders are asking you to come back." Ethan stood still for a long moment. The offer felt both distant and heavy. "You want me to rebuild what I already let go?" "They want you to lead again," she replied, but this time without fear. That evening he told Anna everything. She listened quietly, hands folded in her lap. "If you go back," she said softly, "do it because it is right, not because you feel you owe anyone." Ethan nodded. "And if I stay, then stay because you finally learned how to live." He smiled faintly. "You always make it sound so simple." "It is not simple," she said. "It is just honest." The next morning, Ethan returned to the lake dock. The snow had stopped, and the water shimmered under pale sunlight. He looked at the key she had once held, the symbol of freedom, of everything they had rebuilt together. He finally understood that leadership was never about control. It was about courage, the kind that came from losing everything and choosing to love anyway. As he turned back toward the shelter, he knew that whatever decision came next, it would no longer be made out of fear. It would be made from truth. Let us return to our main character. Spring returned to the lake like a quiet promise. The ice had melted, The trees were alive again, and the shelter was now a symbol of renewal for everyone who entered its doors. Ethan Cross stood at the edge of the dock, the same place where he had once come to escape himself. This time he was not running, he was remembering. Behind him, laughter drifted from the shelter. Anna was speaking with a small group of women, her hands moving gracefully as she explained the next phase of their program. Her voice carried warmth, strength, and something he had always admired, hope. When she saw Ethan watching, she walked over. The sunlight caught her hair, and for a moment, he felt the same quiet awe he had known that first day she walked into his life. "You look different," she said, smiling. "Peace suits you." Ethan laughed softly. "I did not know peace could feel like this." They stood together, watching the reflection of the sky in the water. "Do you ever think about the company?" she asked. He nodded. "I think about it the way you think about a past life. It shaped me, but it no longer defines me." Anna looked at him for a long moment. "And what defines you now?" He turned toward her. "Truth, and the people who helped me find it." The wind rustled through the trees as if echoing his words. She reached into her pocket and held up the silver key he had once given her. "You told me this was for the walls we tore down," she said. "But I think it is also for the doors we still need to open." Ethan took the key, then closed her hand gently around it. "Keep it," he said. "It belongs with the person who reminded me what freedom feels like." Anna's eyes softened. "You are free now, Ethan. Do not forget it." They stayed by the water until the sun began to fade. In the distance, the lights of the shelter flickered on, glowing against the evening mist. The empire of fear was gone, replaced by something simple, something real. For the first time, Ethan Cross was not the billionaire who ruled from glass towers. He was a man who had learned how to rebuild a heart, and this time, not with power, but with love. Thank you for joining us for this cinematic adventure. If you want more untold stories of billionaire love and redemption, please subscribe and choose your next true heart journey on your screen now.